welcome to my channel, Sewing with Tay. I'm Fantasia of the Emporium. Today's video is a sew along, a sewing tutorial per se. I'm not gonna say tutorial, I'm just gonna say sew along. Watch me sew this skirt. We're sewing a simplicity skirt. This one here, I'll pop the picture in so y'all can see it. I made this skirt for an event that I had 2 weeks ago for a fashion show at the Columbus Museum of Art. It came out so good and it was really comfortable, so I thought this would be a great, sew along for my YouTube subscribers. So that's what we're gonna get into today. Alright, so again, here is my pattern. As you can see, I've already cut it. I'm just going to use my same pattern. It comes in a couple different styles. I chose to go this one, which is the one she's wearing, but I'm a short girl, so I just made mine a little bit shorter. For this style, you can use denim, lightweight wools, linens, cottons, faux leather, or suede, or crepe. I chose to use cotton and Cara because I just like to use those fabrics, but you can use whatever fabric you want to. I did need a zipper, and I just bought whatever zipper I wanted to buy, but it says 9-inch zipper on the package details here, what tells you the tools you need for this garment. So when picking out this skirt, it is a Missy skirt pattern, but it goes up to a size 26. Thank you, simplicity. But I got real wide hips, so I have like a 53 inch hip, and I'm using cotton fabric that is not stretched, so I always worry about how comfortable it's going to be, so I err on the side of making them a little bit easier and then nipping in the waist. So on your pattern, you'll have like what measurements you should be or what size to cut. I just cut the biggest size of 26 because if you look at this here at the bottom, oh no, it's not on here. If you look on the paper on the inside, it tells you what the finished garment measurements are. Sometimes they're listed here, sometimes they're inside on the pattern instructions. So you can see here, this is like all the pattern pieces that come with your pattern. These are their labels and things. And then down here you see sizes, and then you see like waist, hip, hip AB, so the A and B skirts, hip, C and D. So I have like a 50-inch waist, so if you come all the way over, the largest size is 54, and I wanted a little bit of ease in my skirt, so I just decided to cut the biggest size. I wish this came in extended sizes because it's such a good skirt, but that's how I decided what size I was going to cut out. I went off of my widest part, which is my hip, and then I'm going to show you what I decided to do for comfort to make this skirt easy for me to wear. Since I am cutting out skirt A, I am going to cut out the back, the side front, the other side front, the pocket, and I'm not doing any of the details like you see here. There's like this little waist detail, and there's like cargo pockets. I didn't want none of that, so I just cut out the back, side front, the other front, the pockets for sure. And this has an interior like waistband, so I cut out the front waistband only. I did not want the back waistband because of how I chose to fit this for my body. So we'll get those pattern pieces. I don't think I used nothing else. And you can see here I tend to circle what I'm going to use: the front, side front, the back, the side pocket, the front facing, and I circled the front facing, the side pocket, front, side, front, back, side pocket, front facing. There you go. Those are the only pattern pieces that I used from this. So more details on the pattern pieces. This here is my front waistband. This is my back. I'm going to cut 2 pieces. This has a dart, but we're not going to do the dart on the back. And I folded it up to the length that I want to cut it out at. This is my pocket bag. I am going to cut 4 of these. This here is the front. It does have a dart that we will sew. And then this here is my side front. And then you make sure you're folding them up to the length we want it to be. And that's all the pattern pieces that we are going to need. This is the fabric I'm going to use for the skirt. It has this cool diagonal pattern. See if we can do something fun with that. But it is cotton. This is in Cara. So it comes with about 6 yards, which we won't use anything close to that. But it's a soft cotton hand skirt. So this is what we're going to use to cut out our skirt pieces. I'm going to fold my fabric in half. The only pattern piece I need double is the back. So once I get that settled, I'm going to cut the back out, and then the fronts are cut one piece at a time because there's a seam in the front. So I went ahead and cut those out here. Once all the pieces are cut out, we are going to move on towards finishing. I like to finish the edges of all my patterns, especially this type of style where the seams would be visible unless you're going to line your skirt or something like that. But I decided that I was going to make sure that I serge all of my pieces. So now I have my waistband and my 4 pockets cut out. I'm going to start slightly serging all the sides. So here is my serger, and I'm going to start with the pockets because there's 4 of them and they're easy, but I'm going to start with 4 of them and then you'll see me add the pockets later. I like to do this for all of the things that I sew because a clean garment is a happy garment and you don't need thread pieces everywhere. Once I got everything serged, I took it back to the table and put the pattern pieces back on so that I can now notch as needed. I find that if I notch before I serge, that the notches are hard to find. So I put it back on the table, put everything back the way it was so that I could go back and make the marks. So I'm just tracing my dark legs or the, circles on the dark legs so that I can put that together later. And that's only on the front skirt. Then I'm going to head over to do the notches on my pocket bag so that I can line them up. My personal opinion is this pocket placement was a little bit low. So I'm like from the top edge. So I wanted to triple check, but yeah, I feel like it was low. Um, but I went ahead and I pinned my pocket bag to the one side of my skirt front. And now I'm going to do my side front. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to clip my notches so I know where things need to line up. And then I'm going to attach my other pocket bag, making sure that I match the notches. I kind of lost the notch for a second. It took me a second there to find it. So that's my other pocket bag. And now we have to do the back of the skirt. The back skirt has 2 panels, so there's a center back seam for the zipper. I made those notches, and then I'm going to attach the pocket bags with pins here, and then we're gonna get ready to go sew all the pocket bags, and then we'll start sewing all of the side seams. And it gets a little hard to see all of this because the print is so like disguising. So here's just a quick view of me sewing the pockets. It's just one stitch down and then I understitch to the pocket bag to keep them from rolling out. And this one I did a little bit slower just so you can see. So I'm going to stitch it down and then fold the pocket open and stitch it again. Now I am going to start with the side seams, the center back seam, and the front seam where the slit is. So this is my center back seam. There is a circle on your pattern to stop for your zipper. So I'm going to leave the top edge open and then I'm going to sew below the circle all the way to the hem for the center back. And because I don't want to keep getting up and down from my table, I'm just going to pin the entire skirt and then I'm going to sew everything at once. So this is me pinning the back. Once I have the back pinned, I'm going to open her up so that I can pin the front to the back at the side seams, aligning my pockets and the hem. So I'm going to get the front pieces and try to lay them out as best I can. It was a little hard because the print was so like blending in with everything. But finally got it together. These is my 2 fronts, so I'm going to start by pinning the front together because there is a front seam and it has a ending point, so there's a circle on your pattern piece that tells you where to stop for your slit. This was a more modest slit than my last one, so I feel like I might take it up later. But I pinned the center, so that's what it looks like. And then we have our dart here, so I'm going to pin my dart point, and then I'm going to align my dart legs so I can sew that when I go. And I want to draw this on here. I realized later that I drew this on the wrong side, so it wasn't on the side that I ended up sewing with, but just to make it a little easier to see, my dart is there. Now I'm going to attach the back to the front. So first thing we have to do is find the right sides and see my zipper opening in the back. We're going to start pinning at the waist on both sides and making sure the top edge of the pocket bags are aligned. You just want to make sure that it's tight. There's no extra space in there for any reason. We're going to sew from the top waist all the way down to the hem around the pocket bag. So we also have to pin the pocket bag together and then making sure there's no extra gaps anywhere. We're going to do that on both sides. So now we have pinned our back seam, our front seam, and both of our side seams. We're going to start here at the top of the side seam and then we are going to sew around. When I sew the side seams, I sew down just a little bit below the pocket opening and then pivot and then sew around the pocket bag. And then when I get to the bottom of the pocket bag, I go up a little bit higher than the bottom of the pocket bag and then stitch into the skirt and then down to the end. That way your pocket bag will have a little bit of closing at the top and there'll be a little bit of opening at the bottom so that you can actually put things into your pockets. So pull all my pins out and then I'm going to move on to the next seam. This here is going to be my center back seam. So I'm going to back stitch and then stitch straight down. I've already finished all of my edges, so I don't have to worry about doing that. And then we're going to move on to the other side seam. And same thing apply here. We're going to stitch down a little bit past the pocket opening, stitch all the way around the pocket bag, making sure to catch all your layers. And then we're going to curve it up just a little bit to give the pocket bag a little bit of a dip at the bottom. And then we're going to sew straight down to the hem. And then last but not least, we're going to do the center front seam. Oh, sorry, I forgot the dart. We have to do the dart. Make sure you backstitch and then you are going to sew off the edge of your fabric. Make sure to pull your darts long and then do a double knot, triple knot, whatever your preference is to secure your dart. After we get done with all of this, we'll go over and hit it with an iron. And then now we're going to sew the center front seam and the skirt will be completely sewn together. And this is where the slit is, so you can stop wherever you want your slit to be or wherever you marked it and then backstitch at the end. So now we have a full skirt. So I have my skirt here laying on the table. I forgot when I made this the first time, I wanted my skirt to be more pegged. So I went in and I took in 1.5 inches along the side seams on both sides and I took in 1.5 inches at the center back. And then I cut like minus 1/2 inch-ish for the seam allowance. And then I'm going to take it to my machine and re-sew the seam allowances and also refinish the edges. Now that that's done, we're going to start on the waistband. So I need some interfacing for my front waistband only. So I'm going to do that really fast. I'm going to pop over to the iron real quick and attach this interfacing. It's relatively simple because this is a rectangle. So I'm just going to iron this on. So once the facing is interfaced, I'm going to go ahead and attach the back facing to the front at the side seams. For my back, I just traced the top edge of my back skirt and I made it the same width as the front facing so that they can attach at the side seam. So you'll see me here, I'm going to pin my back facing to the front facing at the side seams. I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and stitch those closed with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then I am also going to finish the bottom edge with a serger. So you'll see here I serged the bottom edge and I'm going to go back and serge the sides, the center back pieces where it is open. But there's my serger to clean the edge. I'm going to pin this to my skirt and then I'm just going to sew. I thought I videotaped myself pinning this to the skirt, but I guess it didn't make it in here. So here we are. I'm just going to sew a 1/2 inch along the top, connecting the facing to the skirt. And then once that is done, I'm going to push the seam allowance toward the facing and stitch close to the edge, also known as an understitch. And I'm going to sew close to my original stitch, pushing I'm going to understitch my facing, which helps prevent it from rolling out. So only thing you need to do is push your seam allowance up towards the facing and stitch close to your original seam so that the seam allowance will be connected to the facing and it'll be less likely to roll out or fold out while you're wearing it. So I just do that all the way around the skirt seam. So now the facing is attached, and you'll see here, this is the back. What I'm doing for the back of my skirt, because I did not want to put the dart in, I am going to add elastic. And for the elastic, I just make it a little bit shorter than the actual width of the waist edge. So maybe 2.5 inches shorter. I am going to measure where I'm going to put my waist elastic about an inch from the center back seam to the side seams. And I do that because I'm going to be putting a zipper in and I don't want to have to use my zipper through the elastic. That can be difficult and it also can break your zipper. So, so I got my seam gauge out just to mark an inch from the edge there where the zipper is going to go. And just to triple check, it's going to look like this. Once it's sewn together, you'll get a little bit of gathering there. You're going to stitch at the back at your mark, and then you're going to stitch it also at the side seam. So I'm going to open up my facing here, and I'm going to mark that same inch on the inside so I know where to put my elastic. And then I'm going to place it there, and then I'm going to pin through all the layers to hold my elastic in place so that I can sew it. And then I'm going to take another pin and I'm going to pin it at the side seam so that it is being held so that I can stitch through the elastic through the facing. You also will need to extend your elastic and pin it in the middle so that it actually stays in place while you're sewing it. So once you get the other side pinned, you're going to hold it down. You're going to hold both sides down and pull your elastic so that your fabric and elastic are fully extended. And then you're going to put a pin in the middle to hold that in place there. You are going to do that on both sides. So now that we are at the sewing machine again, we are going to stitch down the elastic at the back and at the side seam, making sure to stitch back and forth a few times to make sure that it is secure. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So you're going to do this back stitch back and forth at the center back and at the side seam to hold the beginning and the end of the elastic. Once you do that, you want to clip your threads because you just don't want a bunch of messy threads hanging around per usual. I decided to stitch this at a 1/2 inch. You can do whatever length you decide. My elastic was like 3/4, so I decided a 1/2 inch. So I've lined it up on my plate, and then I'm going to pull this so it's fully extended, and then I'm going to sew a 1/2 inch through the top layer of the facing, through the elastic, and through the skirt. So you'll get this little gathered look here. Make sure that you're stretching this as you sew it so that you will still get some use of your elastic. You will lose a little bit of elasticity, but it's still enough for me. So you see here, just enough to give you some ease at the back waist. So here we are, both sides of my skirt at the back waist have elastic sewn in, and now we need to input the zipper. And I just intend on top stitching the zipper in. I had bought a zipper for this guy and I can't find it. So I have this long zipper that I'm just going to top stitch and I'm going to make a new stopper just by stitching over it, and I'm going to top stitch this zipper into the skirt. So first thing I did was I stitched the zipper to the seam, or to the edge of the fabric to the seam allowance. And I stitched all the way up and I folded the top edge of the zipper back so that it would be caught inside once I decided to top stitch it. So I did that on one side. Now we have to do this on the other side. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to stitch along the edge, fold that top edge, the edge of the zipper back over your fabric so it will be caught into the fold when I top stitch it. So here you go. I'm going to sew it again, lining up the edge of the fabric with the edge of the zipper. I'm just kind of putting in a stitch here down to where my zipper opening ends. This stitch width ended up only being like 1/4 of an inch. I just wanted to secure the zipper to the skirt before I did the top stitch. So you see here, we're just going to line that edge up really carefully and the facing stitching through all of those layers, and we're going to stitch all the way down to the end of the opening, a little bit past the opening actually, so it would be stitching into the seam allowance from where you sewed your center back seam. So you can see that there. Back stitch as always, and then clip your threads. So now the zipper is attached, but now I'm also going to top stitch this on so the teeth of the zipper will be visible. So I'm going to fold that over so that edge is inside, and then we're going to stitch close to the edge, making sure not to have the fabric too close to the teeth so that it won't get jammed up. Now this is a metal zipper, so it is a little hard to stitch over to kind of make a new stopper. So I had to go a little bit slower to make sure that I could stitch back and forth over those teeth so that the zipper, when I cut this, the zipper won't come off. And then we're going to stitch back up the other side. I almost broke my needle here, so be careful not to sew into your zipper pull. And then we're just going to top stitch back up. I will add a hook and eye at the top of the zipper just for security, but otherwise the skirt is just about done. So this here is my center front where the slit is. I am going to stitch across the seam to secure it. I'm going to try to zoom in. I am busting open the seam allowance just like this. You'll see here, this is that center front seam. Well, it's not a center front, it's more like a side front seam. So here I'm going to stitch back and forth to secure that. So if anything happens, my split doesn't rip up my skirt. And then I'm going to just fold back a 1/2 inch. My edges are already finished, so I'm going to fold that down. I'm not pinning or anything like that. I'm just going to sew down a 1/2 inch and then sew all the way down to the hem. And I'm making sure to cut. There were some extra threads hanging in there from when I serged all the edges. So I started at the center front slit. I'm going to sew all the way down to the hem. I'm going to fold up the hem about a 1/2 inch as well. And then we're going to sew all the way over, making sure to open any seam allowances that aren't already open as I sew through here. And then we're going to sew all the way around to the other edge of the front and then back up to the slit. So my phone ran out of storage and I didn't realize it didn't film that last part of it sewing back up to the end of the slit. But here is the finished skirt. It's super cute. I think next time I do this, maybe I'll do it in solid. This could be a little bit more pegged, but I kind of like it compared to the last one. It's super cute, and I think I can make some really fun outfits with this. And that slit could be a little bit higher, but I'm like, maybe I'll wear this to work. Thank y'all so much for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you know when I am making new videos.